which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. There are people online, so we have to do, yes, so
We have folks online, so we'll need to call for a roll call, please.
All right, so again, for anyone online, we want to make sure you can hear us and we can hear you. So board members, please say here once you hear your name called. Wendy.
Here.
Kristen.
Here.
David G.
Here.
Annie.
Here.
Tyler.
Here.
Gotcha. Christine.
Here.
Leslie.
Here.
Patricia.
Here.
Rebecca.
Here.
Sean.
Here.
Brian.
Here.
Kelty.
Here.
David T.
Here.
Abigail did message me and say she would be absent tonight. And Wyatt.
Here.
Thank you. All right, turn it back over to you.
All right, we have some guests with us tonight. This isn't our normal setup. First, I want to thank everyone who's here. I think this is a great conversation to have. Wish more folks were here because I think there's some important conversations to be had and that we're starting to have about the future of the school. I think if you paid attention to last meeting, you will see that we formed a committee to start the discussion about consolidation because the budget is high and we need to figure out ways to lower it. So we'll start with some introductions. Why don't we start? I'll start. We'll have the board just so everyone. So I'll start. Sean Roderick, I'm the chair.
Kristen Dubois. You hear me? Kristen Dubois, Manchester. Annie Seyfried, Manchester. Christine Gatochet, Mount Vernon. Leslie Marco, Mount Vernon. Wendy Brotherland, Manchester. Pat Clark, Reedfield.
Wyatt Stevenson, student rep.
Amy Black, Wayne. Carol Dornbos, Reedfield.
Dave Linton, Reedfield. Sean Keegan, Reedfield.
David Twitchell, Wayne.
Brian Charwick, Reedfield. Dave Gilmet, Manchester.
Kelsey Bodwin, Wayne. Mandy Fitzgerald, Finance Director.
And Jay Charette, superintendent.
So why don't we start with Jay, you giving an
Yes.
update on where we're
Yes.
at right now, and then we can get into more of a
Sounds
discussion.
And we are going to have, usually I go to the podium, but because we're in this shape, I'll stay here today. We do have a little slideshow presentation, and this presentation, for the most part, is centered around the ED 279, which is how the state funds schools and education. So I'm going to go through that ED 279 information first, and then I have some packets that I'll just tell you what those packets are and then just kind of open the floor for conversation at that point. So the one of the important things to know is that we always start with a goal every single year. So to balance the needs of all members of the RSU 38 school community and to promote student success in all areas while maintaining fiscal responsibility. So some of the directives that I gave to the team as we started to build the budget were that we have very little increase in overall spending, 2 to 3% from last year. Always try to start with a number that's as reduced as possible. We want to be as transparent as possible and have equity of spending practices across our instructional lines based on the number of students in buildings. So we also have an allocation for Title I schools, which this year are Mount Vernon Elementary School, Wayne Elementary School, and Reedfield Elementary School. And we also have an additional allocation that we give to Tier 3 schools, and those two schools are Mount Vernon and Wayne Elementary Schools. We're looking at class sizes across elementary schools. We have 15 to 20 in the elementary, 18 to 22 in the middle, and 10 plus in the high school. And again, Positions don't automatically get filled. We will have discussions around what the position is and how we would be filling those positions. So those are some of the major things that we wanted everyone to be aware of as we started the budgeting process going forward. So I'm not going to repeat, that's kind of a repeat of what I've already said, so we'll jump to the ED 279 basics. So I'm just going to hold up a paper. The ED 279 is basically in 5 parts. As you can see up there, the first part is the student counts, which includes staff, benefits, and support staff. The second section is about operating costs and what are subsidizable pupils from pre-K, elementary, middle school, and high school. We also include in here adult education, disadvantaged youth, and our English language learners as well. We have a section 3, which is other allocations for things like gifted and talented, special education, transportation, retirement, debt service, those kinds of things. The 5th section is a calculation of what's required from the local contribution, and it's broken up by municipalities. So you actually see a contribution for each of the towns on this that comes from the state. And then section 5, which is the final section, is their section where you have basically your totals and any adjustments that they have. For example, we belong to a regional service center with Winthrop and RSU 2, so we get a small adjustment for that. So that's the 5 parts of this. So part 1 is enrollment. Diane, that's the wrong one. Yep. The information stays the same, but we do have different slides, so we apologize.
No, it's the wrong slide altogether.
Yep, no worries. That happens with technology. So one of the things as we're waiting for the slideshow to come up, on part 1, it's all about enrollment. What do we have for students attending in our towns at our various schools? And there is a calculation that they use to kind of look at that. They do a rolling average, a 2-year rolling average. So even though our numbers may go up, it's based on the previous 2 years. So like this year and last year, they average them together, and that's what we get for our totals. This particular year, our 2-year average went up by 5.5 students across the district. So that's the average went up by 5 students. In pandemic years, we dropped by 16, so you'd seen a -16 there or a +16. So that number changes as we kind of go through. The other thing to be aware of is they use October 1st, 2023 counts. And as everyone knows, school year enrollments fluctuate as the year goes on, but they calculate what you're going to get based on your October 1st enrollment. So the number can go up, the number can go down, but whatever it says on October 1st, that's what they're using to calculate your number there. So just so that you're kind of aware of what's going on. So that kind of gets you back up to speed, and now the presentation is back at the right slide. Yep, you got it. So again, we are up 5.5 students, and again, that's just a calculation that they use when you're looking at that. All right, we'll go to the next slide, part 2. So part 2 is your subsidizable counts, and this is resident students only. What they do with this is they look at how many students are in each of our 4 towns, pre-K through 12, and then what they do is they figure out what an expected mill rate contribution would be from the town. So they are basically saying the towns have to contribute X amount of money to be able to meet the requirements of how we're funded. So this year, our expected mill rate actually dropped to 6.62. Last year's mill rate that we had to use was 6.97. So dropping the mill rate that's required by the state is a really good thing in theory. We'll talk more about that in just a second. Part 3. Whoops, did I go too fast? Nope, there we go, part 3. One of the things that affects how this is all calculated is state valuations of property. So what you see is the 2023 valuations. When we calculate, we're a year behind. So next year, 2024 is kind of the one that folds in. They use a 3-year average for this. So they go back 3 years, add them up, divide by 3, and that's what your valuation number is going to be by the town. So again, this is set by the state. We have zero control over what that number looks like. So just so that you're kind of aware of that. And as you can see, something that we want to point out is superintendent agreements, people that are from other towns that want to come into our district are not factored in this calculation. Those people are actually paying the tuition rate, and the districts basically pay us for those students. So wherever they're coming from, they get a bill from us and they have to pay that from us. So again, looking at the 3-year average, all of our towns on that 3-year average have seen somewhere between a 10% and 15% increase, kind of looking directly at this year. I'm not even going to talk about next year's. I calculated it this afternoon and it's not pretty, but we'll deal with that next year. Okay, next slide. So our additional local contribution calculations, this is done by our charter agreement. And again, we use a rolling 3-year average, but it's based on 50% of student count and 50% of your property valuation. And again, when we organized it as an RSU, that was put into the organization agreement. So that's what we have to work with. One of the things that's nice this year, again, that's kind of a positive around the ED 279, is the state contribution actually went up about $269,000, which was great, because any more money that the state will give us is always helpful. The changes come from, there was about a 6% increase in special education for special education students, and there was a 24% increase in economic disadvantaged students. And those of you that were here last year, you remember me talking about that, how that number had typically gone down. So we instituted a different form to kind of be able to identify those families. So we actually had almost 50 more students. It's 24%, but it was about 50 more families that filled out that form. And that's a big piece of what helped us get a little bit more money from the state going forward. So again, part of the calculation going forward. One of the things that I'm going to pause for a second and just say, because it is worth saying, because you're going to hear it on the news and everybody kind of spins it a certain way, the state funds 55% of education. That is not true for us. They put that money, that 55%, through a formula calculation. RSU 38 is actually funded 40% by the state. So even though you're going to hear them say, we fund 55%, depending on what the calculation shows, that percentage could be 55%, or it could be lower like us in the 40s. And there are some districts that actually are funded even less than that. So it's really important that like the news that's out there says that, and we realize that really we're looking at the state funding 40% and our locals fund 60% of the cost of education. So it's, I just like to say that. I'm not going to try to tell you how that all kind of plays out as far as the calculation, because it is very complicated. You almost need a a master's degree in math to be able to kind of work through it, but it's worth kind of saying so that you know how much money we actually get on the other end. So again, this slideshow is going to be posted online. If you can go to the next slide, Diane. There are some resources here that you can go to. I did check to make sure all of these links are valid and will get you to the right spots this year. And it just gives you some more information about the EPS formula, what funding looks like, what state evaluations look like. You can research a little bit there. Again, the ED 279 is a public document, so that's easy to pull online. So I put that link up there as well. And then a couple more links that had to do with the EPS formula and the essential programs and services models that you've got. So again, this will be posted online so you can go directly to those slides if you want to. Okay, so having said that, board members, in your folders, I put together some information, and if you haven't picked it up, it is out there. So I just wanted to tell you what that information is and what we've been doing for the last basically week here. So I'm just going to run through the pages. We'll start at the very first one that says in my scratchings at the top, Board, March 27, 2024. Again, this hasn't changed from the last meeting that you've seen, but what we tried to do was list out in the first three blocks or first three columns what was being asked for by the various departments. And then on the other column where it says budgetary contracts, again, I wanted people to be able to see what are fixed costs there. So we can definitely kind of control some of the new requests. We've already eliminated from that, for the people that are here, the Transportation Department asked for some bus aids. That's already been eliminated from the budget. And obviously that's a pretty big expense there. So really what my building principals and directors are asking for above and beyond is basically 1.2%. That's the stuff that we definitely can control. The budgetary contract side, again, we're in negotiations with both the support staff and the professional staff, and then you have contractual raises that are included there going forward. Then you've got the energy costs, our health insurance, dental, and other liability insurances that we have to have as well. And then we've got the state mandate for the Paid Family Medical Leave Act, and that represents 1% of our salaries that we have to pay. It's almost like a tax we have to pay. That's an easy way to kind of think about it going forward. And all of those are basically fixed. We can negotiate with our workers and stuff, but most of that stuff is fixed, as I said. Okay, next page, I drafted some budget saving options. So when you're looking at that, there is two at the top that have already been eliminated. We have an interventionist at the, technology interventionist that's retiring from the high school. We've already reduced that position. We've already reduced out the transportation positions as something that we just can't afford. Then we have, going down the list, I kind of prioritize them. We have an elementary, actually both elementary ed tech, library ed techs are leaving, and I am proposing, because someone's leaving, to cut that from 1.6 down to just 1. The elementary nurse position, we added an extra elementary nurse during COVID. We had funded it through ESSER. We funded it last year through the general fund. So again, that's another suggested possible reduction. We've got elementary guidance, same position, or same format, was funded through ESSER. We funded it last year. But again, that when you're looking at the changes that are happening in schools and how they're running, that was another kind of low, I kept calling it with people kind of low-hanging fruit there. We've got an elementary principal, where again, previous, we had a principal that was sharing the two small schools. They would work between the two small schools. We have a math ed tech that was funded by a tier 3 grant, which we, again, no longer can do. So I look at that as it's not a position that's filled. So we probably would be helpful for us at this point to potentially look at the cuts there. In Wayne, there was, previous to COVID, there was a half-time literacy person and half-time classroom teacher, half-time math interventionist, half-time classroom teacher. So again, I put that down as something, if we're reverting back to pre-COVID times, this might be something that we want to take a look at. We have a middle school teacher that is currently in a long-term substitute role. So again, if we're looking to not fill positions and not kind of have to riff people out of their positions, that might be something we want to take a look at. Potentially looking at enrollments, we could go down potentially one more middle school team teacher. If you flip that over, we did talk about the technology department and the potential for going down one more integrationist. So originally we had 3. We currently have 2. We talked about the possibility of going down to 1. I'll talk more about that in just a few minutes. And then technology ed techs that were also part of the technology department. And then the world language at the middle school. The original proposal was for 1 less language at the middle school. But again, I'm going to talk more about that in just a minute as well. So if you guys will be patient with me. So that was like where we started with cuts. I'll pause for a second, sure.
What is the word
Integrationist, yes. It is a teacher that is basically working with technology and the teachers in a classroom. So they're integrating the technology into the classroom with the teachers and students. I forget sometimes we have these educational jargon that not everyone knows, so good question. The next couple pieces of paper, so again, we've been talking a lot about the technology department. We did a little bit of a dive into area schools just to see what they have for technology. So that's what that is. And again, what the student count is from October 2023. You can see as you look at that, it's varied across even our region here. But again, I thought it would be worthwhile to kind of compare where do we stand with other technology departments in other school systems. And again, how you look across that, across the state. And then the technology director put together, on one side of the page, you'll see where what it currently looks like for her department. And then on the back side, this was a proposal that she was looking at to put forward that, again, the high school technology integrationist is retiring. So taking the middle school and high school and combining that integrationist to cover both schools. And then under the pre-K technology, reducing down 1 technology and tech where she currently has 2 at this point. So she was looking at what could she do for reductions kind of on her own, and she was able to share that with me. And again, I know there'll be questions, so we'll come back and talk about it as we go along. Then the last kind of staple page is I was asked to do a class audit for what classes across the district might be at 10 or less classes. So at the elementary schools, I noted there, I did not look at the pre-K counts, but at the elementary schools, there are 3 classes in the district, 2 of them that are at Wayne that have less than 10 students in a class. So again, if there's an art class, a music class, a PE class, that class obviously has fewer students in it. At the middle school, we had 5 classes. Again, When you're looking at that, 5 classes that were below 10, one of them was a language arts class, 2 were art, and 2 were, one was a foreign language class. 2 were art classes and 2 were music classes. And you did have 1 teen class that was at 11. So the middle school had about 5 classes. And again, think of that like the way they structure their teams and such. Then at the high school, there were 22 classes that had less than 10 students in there, and there was a variety of classes that kind of applies to, from art, art, I'm saying it off the top of my head, and I probably shouldn't. I just know that there was some art, there was some language, there was just kind of a variety, some math classes that had less than 10 students there. I did not count, in that count, I did not count any of the interventionists, like the math interventionist, or the literacy interventionist, the technology integrationist, and I did not count special ed classes in that count either. And this is only teachers, so there's no ed techs teaching any of these small classes or being overseen seeing these classes. Across the district, the lowest class size was a French class at the middle school that had 4, and the highest count was at the high school, a PE class that had 29. So again, trying to look at everything going across. I also did a little work where, and I just did this today, so I want to be very honest that I have not talked, you guys are kind of seeing this for the first time, because I did not have a chance to talk to the foreign language department, Mr. Sorois or Ms. LaForge about this. So this is kind of hot off the press at this point. I put the class sizes for German, Spanish, and French at the high school. I wanted to show, there was a question about how many students are leaving the middle school and going into a level 2 language, and what do those numbers look like? So the guidance department at the high school was kind enough to work up this little chart that shows how the number that you see there, like I'm going to use the incoming class of 2028. There are 16 students as 8th graders that are coming into the high school with, or going into a level 2 language, like a Spanish 2 class as an example. So again, I was asked to provide that, just wanted to make sure that you guys had that. And I'm not going to read all of that to everyone. What it does come down to, though, is that with some creative work, we could actually ask the language teachers from the high school to come down to the middle school and teach at the middle school as well. That would mean changing their model a little bit. Right now, the current model is 6th grade does an exploratory, and then 7th and 8th grade year, they choose a language. In order to be able to do that, we would have to not have exploratory at 6th grade. We'd actually have to have exploratory at 7th grade. Then they could choose the language at 8th grade. And again, if we use that model, we could use the 3 language teachers from the high school to be able to do that. So again, that's hot off the presses, and I know there's going to be some conversation. Some of that comes about the final page. Again, just did a little bit of a comparison across area schools as to what they offer for languages, how many teachers they have for those languages, and then kind of what the model is that they use. And again, I'm not going to read that all to you, but I wanted you to see that. Again, there's a variety of models out there that we can take a look at, which basically preserve language at the elementary school, at the middle school. So we still have the 3 languages, and we could service it with the high school teachers. So I see your hand up. Yes, a full-time equivalent, which is basically a teacher. Yeah. Very good. So that's all the information. It's here for discussion going forward. And I'll turn it back over to Sean and let him kind of
Yep.
facilitate this.
Yes. We'd like to hear from, I know that was a lot at once, but we'd like to hear from you folks first. We've been talking about this for a while, and that's why
Can I
you're here.
just quickly add, we put in what you see for I did it really quickly and I misplaced it. I don't know where I put it. We did put in the draft number 2 in your packet, so you'll see the draft number 2, as well as the revenue sheet draft number 2, as well as the local dollar calculation as draft number 2 as well. So tonight, we're gonna be working on draft number 3, so I apologize, I wanted to make sure I pointed
Yep,
that
no
out.
problem. So why don't anything you want to share, any ideas, thoughts on the budget? No, that's
Yeah,
it.
just
This
for
is
your
for your
information.
information. Yeah,
Oh, you gotta
we
use-
gotta have you use a microphone because
So
we
we're
are
gonna,
on.
if you guys can pass it around.
Yeah. If
Sorry
you could
about that,
just-
guys.
yeah.
Okay, now is it loud enough yet?
Yeah.
Yes?
Diane, are they loud?
Is it on?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. It's funny because I can't hear it. So there's a really interesting analysis of foreign language. What prompted that, and is there an analysis like that of other subjects, or was that a request to do that?
It was kind of a request from last meeting to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because what that stemmed from was there was a start from last year, there's a little bit of history there, it just wasn't a request out of the blue. There was a move made to cut one of the foreign languages, and then we didn't do it, we decided not to do it, and then that thought was still out there, and that's what led to that, so I just want to add that background.
And I guess another question, we're just gonna kind of do this, right?
Yeah, I mean, we'll go for a little bit. but-
So there's a nice explanation of the elementary, middle, and high school classes that have below 10. Do we have the current count of classes? So maybe elementary's easiest. So if 3 are below 10, are there only 10 other classes, or are there like 47 classes and 3 of them are small?
I can tell you that. If you'll give me 1 second, I'll pull up my little chart.
Well, that's awesome. I don't really think it's the place for the towns to be telling the school where you should cut expenses.
No, I guess that's not, I should be clear, I'll get that. What I'm looking for is, I mean, what do you guys are in the community too, you know where this budget's at, what do you think of where the budget's currently at if we don't cut anything else? Because we have emails on a wide variety of the spectrum, people saying, don't touch anything, and we have emails and phone calls on the other end of the spectrum, please cut more. So wondering your perspective, because you have to make these same type of decisions.
Well, it's hard. I mean, it always is to set a budget and to explain it to other people. I think we found Reed Field's town budget is projected to be like an 8% increase we found the other day. It's a much smaller budget than yours, so that's a little easier to spread out amongst the same people. But, you know, there's certainly a sentiment that people would like taxes to be as low as possible. And, you know, within reason. And there are things like we talked about last year about consolidated schools. As a place in the future, it's not really in this that we're talking about. And things like looking at class sizes that are really small, can we afford to do that? Well, of course we can, because you can put it out to a vote, and if people say yes by voting, then everybody gets billed. But that necessarily doesn't mean it's the best thing for the communities. It's nice to offer kids all those opportunities, and maybe some of those small classes are classes with students who need more attention. And so it's better for the students and the teachers to survive with smaller numbers. But can we afford, a whole language teacher who only has a student load of 43 students, say in German? That becomes a really expensive position. And then you might balance that off with a teacher in another subject, say a science classroom that might have 95 students. So they have a double the course load and they're getting paid the same, they're doing the same day's work, but you've got twice the amount of work to do. Sorry, it just seems that if there can be more of a balance, that it would be more reasonable and more palatable for people to say, yes, we can support that.
Thank you.
So just before you talk, Mr. James, I just wanted to answer the question. There are 3 out of 30 elementary classes. And that's K through 5. So there are 30 classes in all, and 3 of them are below 10.
That's not that bad.
No, it's not.
So just a few comments maybe about the smaller classes and how to handle that. And I can see, why you were requested to do the analysis for the language teachers. But I think that the one question I would have is, I know you said it was hot off the presses, and from a teacher standpoint, I guess I'm really curious. Then, so the teaching staff has not had a chance to weigh in on this, right? And the logistics and managing that. And I think that's obviously a very critical piece. I mean, I do agree, like you said, everybody wants lower taxes, but we have to balance that. And I think the important thing about the small classes is, I think the number is not always the only thing you have to consider, right? Like, I would guess right off the top of my head that there's probably an AP calculus class that's really small, right? And so that seems to me to be something that's, it could be a pricey thing to offer for a small number of kids, but it's also a pretty critical thing to offer. Same thing with, if you've got like an IA class or a drafting class or an architecture class, I think is also a really critical skill for people to be able to do, knowing how to use a CAD system, for example, computer assisted drafting. So I think we have to look at not just the numbers, but what the classes are also.
Thanks for that. Anyone else want to add anything?
I have a couple of questions about,
Yep.
I was looking online before I came over tonight and just the maintenance proposal pieces, and I saw that was going up in the lease projections. And so just some of those items that are listed on there, though, have we looked at those too? Because there's some big ticket pieces in there that I think are definitely worth talking about, especially if you're going to talk about different buildings as well. So what's happened with that?
Are you okay?
Yeah, go
And
ahead,
I'll ask Mandy to
Yeah,
chime
go
in
ahead,
if I'm misspeaking or if I miss anything. So we actually were looking to lease purchase where we would pay 4 years, 5 years, I always forget, 4 years. 4 years, so we would pay back 25% over the course of 4 years for, I don't remember the number off the top of my head. Do you remember it? It was like 300,000? Yeah, it's 300,000. So by doing that lease purchase, we get the 300,000 to be able to work on projects, but we only have to pay back 25% of that. And build that up, so eventually we have a $300,000, at the end of 4 years, we have $300,000 built into the budget, so that we can kind of keep addressing those big ticket items that we have year after year after year, because we've got, as you know,
I
old
guess I was more
buildings.
confused by like the lawnmower every 3 years portion and stuff like that, so just, I thought that seemed a little excessive, spend $50,000 on lawnmowers every 3 years.
Yeah, do you want to?
It's not just the lawnmower, so the way it
So is it
works.
a capital improvement projection and not just that item per year?
Correct,
Right.
correct.
It's not very clear in
So
your
the
document.
idea is, before COVID, well, it wasn't even COVID, it was, we had gotten the bond years ago, and the bond helped us do a lot of facility projects. The bond is now done, and our maintenance person needs to go back to where his budget was pre-bond.
because by doing the bond, he was able to bring his budget way down. But in order to maintain facilities the way we should, his budget needs to come back up. So rather than bring it up 300,000 in 1 year, we're just bringing it up a quarter of that over the course of 4 years. So each year it'll go up a quarter. And that will help him get to a maintainable budget to do all the building maintenances for all of our grounds.
And then I guess, so what, how did I mean, I walked over the brick on my way in, and I see that's to be taken up and put tar down on it. So I just thought, you know, those are some of the things that are in there, and I thought, well, that seems a little wild, because that was a lot of money, so. I understand bonding, you know, we're doing that every day in our municipal budget. I look at some of the projects listed, and I'm wondering, are we just trying to find that $300,000, or where's that need coming from? And is it because there's an ADA portion of something? I don't know, I really would like more clarification other than that just one piece of paper that's listed under there. So I think some explanations on that portion is pretty important if we're looking to ask the voters to bond something for 4 years of $300,000 a year. Right?
Yep. I will talk to the facilities director and I will get you that information. I don't want to speak for him, so.
Go ahead, Mr. Wood.
Looking at your sheet, you had a couple positions that you said you were not bringing back. And you have 7 positions that were funded by ESSER or the Tier 2 grants.
Yeah.
Were those all positions brought on through COVID?
So the nurse was, the guidance was, the elementary principal was, the math ed tech was, that was a different grant, but it's the basic same concept. And then increasing the literacy and math at WES was also funded by ESSER as well.
So were we functional to the standard we should be, I guess, but prior to that, without those positions? Or has the need changed?
Yeah.
Or what is the?
Yeah, so like, I'm gonna speak about the nurses. We brought them on during COVID because there was so much going on with COVID, and I won't get too far into that.
Understandable.
We also had some very high needs medical students as well, but they've actually moved out of the elementary schools, and now we're in the middle school, which has a full-time nurse, you know, it's a bigger school. Same with the high school, or they've moved into the high school as well. So there is less of a need at the elementary schools right now for the nurses. And kind of the same with guidance. We brought it in because there was an extra need there. We kind of restructured the people that were there and stuff. And, you know, there's always a need for our little ones to have that. But again, could we potentially go back and just be a little more efficient with our time? I think the answer to that is yes. So.
Sean, can I speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Only because I heard from a person today about that very question that you asked. And their perspective, working in the schools, was that no, they were not okay before the ESSER-funded positions came on. They felt not fully staffed, and now with fewer demands, probably because of the reason that Jay just said, they are feeling fully staffed and that things are adequate. But they feel like cuts would bring them back to a place where they did not feel like they were meeting need. So I just, that was an opportune time for me to raise this community member's concern. So I'm sticking it in right there because you just raised that. But I just want to say one more thing. I'm going to editorialize now. This is not what the person said to me, but I think the idea, just because ESSER funds are, the federal government is finished giving us money, but the effect of COVID and many other things on young children these days and families is extraordinary. There is an epidemic of mental health need, anxiety and depression for kids in middle and high school. And so it's a bit of an appeal to hear from townspeople. Thank you for coming to the meeting. I would love to hear from people in my community, Mount Vernon, about their support for, keeping these positions. Because really the schools, that's the only place where you can find that help. There is no mental health facility in our community. And so families and kids come to us for that. And so I just wanted to, that's my opinion.
Thank you.
And by no means, I'm not advocating cutting all those positions. I'm just
It's a
trying
great
to open
question,
that for
an important
conversation.
question, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I think Catherine already mentioned it, Sean, that, certainly not our job to tell you where to cut. But I would say certainly when, those are three big money items there, right? That's $200,000 for those two positions. But they're also at what I consider, as a high school teacher, is probably the most critical time. I mean, if you don't get them early, it only gets harder and harder and harder to get them, And so just consider that.
No, I appreciate that. So we're gonna go to public comment in a minute.
I do have a few questions.
Yeah,
So I just have a couple questions, and dovetailing off that last conversation, I did hear from someone, it's gotta be difficult with 4 different schools and part-time nurses, because they're there during part of the day, and then the other part of the day, if someone gets injured, someone comes down with a fever, the office staff, from what I hear, kind of slides in and takes care of that child and sees them through, and that's tough. So I guess I'm a little bit conflicted with the loss of an elementary nurse when they are kind of shared and they're during certain parts of the daytime. I am glad, that some that needed extreme care maybe ease that burden. And the math and literacy techs, that's tough to cut. They're the ones, I hear so much about kids coming in even to kindergarten, and those younger grades, some have preschool and come in very talented, almost reading, and others come in with like hardly any skill, and it's really hard for those teachers to teach to the masses and catch those kids up and keep the others interested, and that's real tough, and that's where the ed techs, I think, come in to maybe help with the extra time with the ones that struggle or don't have the preschool or the base, coming into school. So it's hard to think about cutting some of the ed techs that really make the teachers' jobs and get those kids caught up. One thing I noticed, and maybe I don't understand what it's for, but the $600,000 balance forward, unexpected or unexpended expenditures, is that kind of rainy day funds? Is that, I'm
So
just curious.
that's, obviously, when you do a budget, you're not gonna do your budget so tight
Right.
that at the end of the year, you are out of money, because then you have to go back to the townspeople and ask them for more money. So that's what we're anticipating, being able to carry forward, which helps bring the amount down of the local dollars. So we're hoping to have that amount moving forward to bring that down.
Thank you. And I looked, because I'm always, okay, what's our bang for our buck? With a big budget. And I did look of where Maranacook is, and I was really excited. Maranacook is 9th in Maine high schools, ranked 9th. I think that's outstanding. It was best high schools in Maine, and that was like performance, everything. It was, I used this a few years ago, and I think we were below 13. We were in the top 20, but we're gaining. And that's great for you guys. You guys are making great decisions, but the staff and the teachers and ed techs and everybody, that's really good to be from this little region and be so highly ranked in the state of Maine. That's really awesome. But then there was, as far as math proficiency in that same article, 46% in math proficiency, reading proficiency 68. So,
and that's at the high school level. So that kind of pinpoints to maybe those ed techs, you know, again, when you don't catch them early, some of them still struggle at the high school level. And then they go on and they're still struggling to whatever jobs they may be going to. And one thing, I have held on to this for 10 years. Something that impacted us and our schooling. There was, in the annual goals for administrators, 10 years ago, one of the administrators in black and white said it is our goal to have more than 55% of our students proficient in math, in main assessments. And that's in reading and math. I'm hoping nobody ever in the history of Marana Cook puts in writing that our goal is 55%. Our goal of any administrator should be 100%. If your outcome is 55%, okay, you really have to plan for what that is. But that black and white in a mailing caused us to make the decision to move from Reedfield to another school district for 3 years. So I'm just saying, words matter. What we found out in the comprehensive plan is the majority of residents in Reedfield, I don't know about the other towns, are close to retirement age or over. So we're gonna have, the next 10, 20 years, we're gonna have a big turnover in homeowners, and we need to attract those young families to our schools to keep them full and our town's growing and thriving and taxpayers. And so we're strong in sports, of course. We're well known in the arts. We do a great job there. Academics, we can always improve. And I think that's where the focus needs to be. We do a great job, and I think everybody that makes the big decisions and the hard decisions for the education of our kids. Thanks.
Well, thank you. Unless we have any more discussion from you folks about the budget, there's some members of the public, I know a lady back here. Could folks sign up there's no one signed up, so we really need you to sign up if you're gonna talk, please, so we know. Is anyone else here to talk at this time? Okay. And I just want, you get 3 minutes, so. Yeah, we can move a microphone to the podium if that works. Yeah, I don't know why there's not one.
Well, I know I see some familiar faces here tonight, but I just wanted to talk about some of those positions that were.
Could you identify yourself and which town you're from, please?
I'm Kyra Darling, and I'm from Wayne.
Yep.
My kiddos go to Wayne Elementary School. Some of the ESSER positions I know are instrumental to our school. They are part of the heartbeat of our school. I see some wonderful folks here tonight, and I know I have quite a great showing here. You guys, if you're from Wayne Elementary School, you want to stand up? Yes. And I think we're all here to make sure that these positions don't go away, because these kids, they make relationships with these people. It's not just this person. My kids come home and they say, this person really helped me with this. It's about the person that's there and how much of an impact they make on the kids that are there. I can say that our principal has been an amazing principal and has instrumented things in our school that really make a difference for my kids. And I know we do have some smaller classes, but I believe that our smaller classes allow our principal and our interventionists to get through to them and make the relationships that are going to bring them into their middle school years, their high school years, throughout their entire life. And I think that those are really important. So I really hope that we can keep those positions and continue fostering these amazing relationships.
Thank you so much for coming and providing your input. And
I did have another one, I'm very sorry.
Yep. Go ahead. You can go ahead.
So through the rumor mill, and this doesn't have to do with this year's budget, but the future of the RSU, there's talk about consolidating the 4 elementary schools into one new middle school on this campus up here. Is there something in the works
Yeah,
for that?
I'm sorry if I wasn't clear enough. We did vote at last meeting. It was a unanimous vote to form a committee to look at consolidation with community input, teacher input, student input. So it's not a rumor, it's a fact that there will be a committee formed. Jay and I haven't had time to talk about, to invite people to that committee because we're dealing with a budget right now.
And then is there still, as far as preschool, is there universal preschool offered in our RSU?
Yeah, we have pre-K. Some kids have to come from, go to other schools because of the class size, but all our kids are offered pre-K within our district.
Thank you. Love it.
All right, was there any other members of the public? Because we are going to go into deliberation, so here's your opportunity. Yep, go ahead. Yeah, if you want to step. You have to step up and identify yourself. Yeah, and use the microphone, so you will be on the video. This is part of public comment.
I'm from Wayne. My name's Angie. I actually have a meeting with Jay tomorrow because this is outside my comfort zone. Don't do this. My son's in kindergarten. He's delayed in speech. We had CDS. Because of COVID, we were not able to access speech through CDS because we all know about COVID. He was in preschool. He was, with his classmates and everything. He didn't talk. He would not talk there. He went 2 years. He started kindergarten. He still would not talk. He talks at home okay. Sometimes we can't understand him. They labeled him as selective mutism, which is great. We're okay for the labels because that accesses the help that he needs. The principal has helped. She's there every day, reading the kids. He's in speech through school. He does, I think, the intervention, the reading, writing. He couldn't hold pencil, color. We tried. They've worked with him. He's writing now at his age level because of the interventionist. He also accesses counseling because selective mutism is also under a mental health diagnosis. Julian meets with Ms. Wicks a couple times a week. Still, he doesn't talk, but they're giving him the resources, the confidence, and they're working with him day after day, being consistent. And even though COVID's done, these kids that are just starting school now are still struggling with the effects of COVID. So the funding for those programs might be gone, but they are really needed because you start early, just like Mr. D said and other people said, you start early, then later on, you won't have to deal with that. I have an older daughter that was in Head Start, amazing program, because she started young. She's a CNA now, she's almost 20, she's going to college, and I love this school district because it's so small, it's so community oriented, and I don't know, that's all I have to say.
No, great job. Thank you so much for sharing.
I appreciate this school. It's unlike any other. I've been in the Augusta School District too, because that's where we started with my kids, and you guys don't compare to any other district, so I thank you. I want it to keep going, so thank you, I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much. I know it's not easy for everybody, so thank you so much.
Sean, I just,
Yep.
Go ahead, Sean.
I just have one last question. Do you have any inklings of what raises and negotiations are looking like?
We can't discuss that.
But we don't have a single clue.
I mean, we,
Not that they can share.
not that we can
Not that
share.
we can
Just
share.
initial proposals?
I
No.
bet they have a clue, but they can't tell you. So the one sheet, I don't think you've talked about it before I got here, but the local dollar calculation. Just sort of, what's the bottom line looking at right now if you aren't going to do anything that's on the nice teal and purple sheet? You know, where, kind of, what are our numbers looking at?
Do you want to do that? Okay.
So when you're looking at this sheet, the
Yep.
local dollar calculation sheet, the bottom line, if you look down, it's like the fourth set of boxes up, and it says your local percent increase for 24-25 is 9.33%. So with our budget being at a 6.49% right now for the second draft, that results in a 9.33% increase to the local dollars. That's district-wide. If you look across, you can see each of your towns, how that plays out. So, for example, Reedfield would be 10.10, Manchester's 9.23, Mount Vernon 7.85, and Wayne is 10.16. So that's with the budget as is a second draft.
And we can't really say that that's going to not go up because you are negotiating two huge sectors' salaries. Did you put any sort of an estimator in this budget for what you think salaries might be?
We
Or
don't-
is this just last
We don't
year's?
anticipate the budget going up. Hopefully.
Okay. So we're looking at it most likely staying where it is or going down. Am I reading this correctly?
That is correct.
I mean, we can probably live with that. It's not 15%, that's really good.
It's not 44%.
Because then I wouldn't be smiling at all. You know, and it is a wonderful school district. There's no questioning about that, but, you know, there's also being wise with your money. And maximizing what you can, and there are places that you can consolidate that make sense. It might not be particularly comfortable, but they make sense, and then there are places like we just heard from Heron and Wink that would be catastrophic to cut or to consolidate, so, good luck.
All right, thank you. We're gonna, unless you guys have anything else? All right. All right, we're gonna move on to the deliberations, decisions, and making. You folks are free to go, unless you wanna join in on that. I know you have your own. We're gonna take a 3-minute break.
Do we get to vote?
We're gonna recess for 3 minutes.
Stuff close by.
All right, well, I think we're gonna, my recommendation is we start by looking, I think we start the discussion by looking at the draft budget saving options and see where folks want to go or not go. One thing I do want to remind folks is it is, you know, that training we had at the beginning of the year, I know it's not always easy, but it is our job as a board to look at things as a whole, not as for all students in the district and not individual towns, not individual schools, not individual programs. It's our job to look at things as a whole so that we provide an education, an equal education for all students. So I just want to remind folks of that as we go into this. I know there's a lot of emotions. I received a lot of calls today from people who weren't happy, probably the most calls I've received since I've been on the board, or some people who were happy and said, keep going. So there's all extremes here. So I just want to keep that in mind, and I know folks do a great job with that type of conversation. So we'll go from there.
Sean,
We'll start with Leslie.
as a new board member, and as there are a lot of people in the room, and I think some people online that are engaged, that are plugged in, can you walk through what this next section of our process looks like as far as motions to remove, motions to keep? Like, what does this process look like so that we can keep a clean process to move forward?
Yeah, how we've done it in the past is we could go down through and discuss each of these items. I mean, we can do it many different, I've seen it done many different ways. I've seen someone come in and make a motion that we cut everything on a sheet, and then we back up from there. I've seen it done kind of go down through individually and have discussion and take no motion till the end. I mean, it's really what we want to make of it. So I guess I'm open for people's input on how they want to handle that. I mean, it's not a set way every year since I've been on the board, and I've been on the board for, I think, 12 years. So it's really how folks want to handle it. So I'm open to suggestions. So I'll start with, Leslie, do you have one since you asked?
I
for it?
don't, I'm open to following
Okay.
the flow of the board. It's just if there's a point when we need to do something.
Yep,
more
then the
formal,
point
just
would be when we need
put
to.
the bumpers in.
Yep, when we need to do something, we're gonna need to make a motion to cut or not cut something.
Yep.
And we have a vote, and if it passes, then Jay and Mandy will come back with that number for next meeting, so we can have is it the next meeting?
Yes.
Yeah, we need to have a final vote. If it fails, then we can look at other options, or we can give it a shot and see what happens. So I'm gonna start here. Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, so to start that conversation, I think the least triggering, from what I've gathered, position on here is technology. So I think that we should talk about that.
Okay. Yep, I'm writing these down, so
Okay.
we're gonna start with technology, okay?
You know, looking at the information that Jay provided,
Yep,
having 9.5 positions, I mean, we're more than RSU 9, which doubles our student count. So I think it makes the most sense just looking at the information. Obviously, I'm not in the school system. I can't see what the technology departments are going through, but it just, to me, on paper, makes the most sense to talk about it. And again, least triggering, so, you know.
okay, but we're gonna go there first and just take an input, right? Yep, go ahead, Christine.
So I'm happy to talk about that, but I wanted to make a motion, so maybe we should talk about that first, and
Yep.
does that make sense?
And if there's any other questions like that, let's do that. I would like to do that before we get a motion, but I'm this one person. Go ahead.
Sean, thank you.
Tyler and I would like to speak.
Yep, we'll go there next.
You want to do
Rebecca
that?
and Tyler have hands up too.
Yep, I know, I got that.
Okay.
Rebecca, go ahead.
I just wanted to start the conversation by saying, as far as the list is concerned, I am open to discuss everything, but I'm kind of a hard no on the elementary teacher and the guidance counselor. That's where I stand on those two.
Okay, Tyler?
Yeah, I'm open to everything on the list as well. But similar to Rebecca, I'm kind of a hard no on guidance and the principal at the elementary level. I just think that we've gained a lot organizationally from it, and I think we'd kind of be setting ourselves back in terms of just improving test scores and overall health within those schools.
Yep, all right, thanks. Go ahead.
So I was going to make a motion, but then we were talking about technology, but then my motion is related to these positions, so can I just make the motion and then we can talk about, is that something that we can?
Sure.
Okay. I'd like to.
Yeah, oh, Dave, I'm sorry. Okay, Dave, go ahead.
Yeah, real quickly, I just have one concern, maybe wasn't addressed. Last time we were at 6.49%, and I see these cuts. Has that been reflected in that?
No.
6.9?
So the high school integrationist is reflected in that 6.49,
So this will go
and the
down.
transportation is 6.49. So those two are like definitely off the table and already factored into, reduced out of the budget.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
So this is less those.
right, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
Good
that's all right,
question.
yeah.
Yep.
No,
No,
this, yeah,
Mandy,
the
go ahead.
6.49 includes those cuts already.
Right,
Yes.
that's, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Guilty?
One more thing, to keep me on track, and forgive me, guys.
No, don't, no.
So obviously, the budget is at an all-time high, and so, we're looking at our needs list and our wants list, and we have to get rid of our wants list and focus on our needs list. And in my opinion, this list is a needs list, and the wants list is like the drill press and extra things. So why aren't we starting with eliminating the needs list, and why are we starting with the most crucial human being position? Why are we starting here instead of the extra, if you will? Is it
So,
because we're
yeah.
focusing on only
Well-
these items tonight, and we'll look at other things another time? Am
Well,
I-
I'll just say this to everyone, 1%, a reduction of 1% is $230,000 roughly. When you're looking at your like the drill presses, the first thing, so I'm just gonna go to that. Right, like, that's gonna account, if you were to wipe out everything that's there, you're gonna basically wipe out $230,000, and that's gonna be 1% of the budget.
Count it.
So, yeah, so, and I don't know if that's, yeah, it's just like, that's kind of what you're looking at right now.
These
Yeah.
things should be discussed. We shouldn't
Right.
overlook those
Right,
things
yes,
in
yes.
discussion before we are
Yeah,
making.
they're smaller ticket
heavy
items,
moves.
right? I think, Kelty, what I'm hearing you say is they're smaller ticket items, but we should still be talking
Oh,
about them.
absolutely.
Okay, that's what I'm hearing. Okay.
Fair enough.
Because of eliminating enough little ones equals, justifying keeping something here, that matters significantly.
Okay. I'm ready for,
Okay.
proceed.
So I'd like to make a motion to keep the elementary nurse, the elementary guidance, and the elementary principal positions. I'd love to hear what people have to say about that and open to discussion, but especially given the committee to discuss consolidation, where we might be able to save some funds with positions and other, in buildings. I'd like to discuss keeping those 3 positions.
Okay. Second. We have a motion and a second. That will start our discussion. So I see Becky's online. She can go first. Rebecca? Oh, I guess she took her hand.
Sorry, I don't remember what I was gonna say, and it doesn't have anything to do with this motion, but I'll give my opinion anyway. I would be in favor of, right off the bat, keeping the guidance in the elementary, but I still could be swayed on the nurse.
Okay. Go ahead, Annie.
I was just going to say, I agree that the elementary school principal is indispensable to the overall functioning and well-being of the entire school. I think if we were to cut it, everyone would be spread very thin, and where we want to retain people, I think ultimately that could backfire. I do think that the nurse also is someone that we do need to have full-time. I think that when she's not there, there are other people that are going to have to pick up the slack, which is also really, really difficult. And again, it could lead to retention problems. And as for guidance, I agree, absolutely necessary.
Brian, go ahead.
Is our goal, looking at this, to eliminate $1 million from the budget? And if so, why? Is it just because we have a number that, the towns were here earlier, and I didn't seem too alarmed at the number that included everything here, and included the $7,500 drill press, which blows my mind. I have no idea how much a drill press costs, but it doesn't seem like it should be that much. I'm gonna harp on that until the end of this whole thing, so I'm glad I've got another co-conspirator here. But, so that's my question. It's great to have these options to eliminate the positions, to save money. But I go back to one of our first meetings of the year, our 3 goals, if I recall, and the first one was making sure we're educating the kids and doing it in a fiscally responsible way, and I'm paraphrasing quite a lot here, but if there's a strong need to show that this body considered the needs of our tax-paying public by making difficult choices, then okay, then we can do that. But I just didn't know what the goal was. Do we need to cut $1 million from the budget, or is it $500,000, or do we get a ribbon if we only do a $250,000? I don't know how it works. So I think that's just something we ought to think about as we talk about these. Each one of these are people. These are people with jobs today who won't have them if we just raise our hands and say no. So it's super important. But I'm also very fiscally conservative, and we have to keep a lid on taxes. So it's an impossible task. It's great, first year in the school board.
Glad you're here.
David, go ahead.
What guidance do you have?
Good things. That's part of our debate every year, I think, that we're trying to be responsible for our towns and responsible to the first goal that state law says for our children, for our students, to giving them the best. And it was really nice to hear that we rank so well in many ways. That's all I'm gonna say right now. I'm just.
So I think, to try, I mean, to answer your question, Brian, I mean, I think that's always what's the breaking point?
Right.
No one knows what that is. I mean, the breaking point for some people has already happened. Let's just be honest. The breaking point is there. We see the struggle in our communities with people who are going to the food bank. We see struggles with people who work in this school even who have said, I can't afford to buy a home. I've heard that from people. So where's that breaking point? And I feel, I can speak for myself and myself only, I have a responsibility to speak for those people, maybe who can't be here tonight. People who live on my road who are packed in the one house with 7 kids because that's all they can afford. And I mean, you could say, in my opinion, we're not being responsible. We'll just keep raising it till it fails. And then we come back here, and my words, a fire sale. I've seen it happen in other districts. I've been involved in, well, I've been involved in it, but I see it. And you just start whacking stuff free nil, or you come July or August, and kids who think they're gonna get services don't get services because the budget failed. Or there's not a sports team or whatever. It seems like when those things happen, it goes to the heart of the kids. And that's unfortunate, and I don't want to be in that position, and I don't think that's responsible. Could we pass this budget as is? Absolutely. I mean, but today in the KJ, the county budget's going up by 44%. The Reed Field budget, I don't know what she said, some number. 8 or, sir, what'd you say? Yeah, 8%. So you start adding that up, and that gets real for folks. So, I mean, what's the goal? Is it to cut $1 million? I don't think it needs to be, but I think having the budget at the all-time high to keep providing the services, when we were told back when the ESSER funds, I remember it clear as day, these positions aren't there to stay, and I think I laughed because that's not how the government works. Once they're in, people are used to those and think they need them, but we survived all these years without them. So that's where I'm at. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would just comment about, again, what I heard from a community person today saying, you know, they weren't okay before COVID, and, you know, ESSER funds enabled them to be fully staffed in a way that they never had been. And so now they're seeing that they're able to meet need that was there before. So I just, also, I wasn't on the board when we said they wouldn't be kept.
Yeah, no, I get that, but that's like
No,
anything.
no,
Yeah,
I understand where you're coming from.
No,
Yeah.
it's fair. All your points are fair. David?
Yeah, just for clarity, you know, I don't like seeing anybody lose their job, nobody does, but the elementary principal, who does take over? If there's no principal there, is there a teacher that's second in command
Yes.
that you feel is adequate enough to handle the position?
Yeah, I can just talk about pre-COVID. The way I knew it, we had a lead teacher in every building that kind of still did their regular work, but if there was an emergency or something needed to be handled, that lead teacher was expected to go and take care of that. They'd find someone to cover the class, and then they would communicate with the principal and work out whatever they needed to. Like if the principal was in the opposite school, they would work that way, so.
It used to be that way too. My mother-in-law was the principal at Wayne Elementary School years and years ago, and she was also a teacher, science teacher.
Yeah.
So she carried the 2 roles and it worked, but I understand there's people that are really concerned. I saw the letters today too, so I had to clear that up just to make sure that there is somebody there
Yes.
that could handle
Yes.
that position.
I think whoops, sorry, trying to look this way too. Wendy, you guys in. Tyler, you're next.
This is more a Jay question. What was since we've moved to full-time principals in the elementary school, has there been a reduction in turnover, um, around staffing at Mount Vernon and Wayne?
Absolutely. Yep, yep, no question asked. Yeah, there's no question about that. Yep. There had
I mean,
been huge.
that kind of sells it for me because I know when I came on, what was it, 2021? That was our big issue that we set out to maybe not solve, but to improve was reducing staff turnover in the district. And I think the way we went about it using the grant funds to see if it worked, it's proven that it does. You know, I I have a hard time saying to it if we're going to go back to part time at the elementary schools, asking a teacher who's teaching their own class to step away from those students to do discipline for the building as a whole. And I think we're doing a disservice to any student in those two schools if we do away with that leadership position. And that's kind of where I'm at. As for the nurse and guidance, if I had to pick one, I'd pick guidance over the nurse, just given that COVID's health wise is kind of improved, but I think we're still dealing with a lot of mental health issues. But again, I can be swayed for both.
Yep, Annie, go ahead.
Just real quick, I feel like the nurses are sometimes the unsung, kind of invisible heroes that make up the glue of the school. If we look at the hierarchy of needs, there are a lot of students that need little things just throughout the day. They need to go to their person. I think there are times when I've oftentimes felt that there could even be two nurses at a school. That's how spread thin they already are. So I can't imagine having half a nurse. It would be extremely difficult.
Kristen, go ahead.
As far as the principal, I think that's the common denominator. I think I've heard the most from community members that Jeanette has made such a difference. And, I agree 100% too about the principal. Nurse too, I get worried about, health emergencies, things like that. I know everybody's CPR certified, things like that, but I get a little bit nervous about not having a full-time nurse. But I guess my question/comment about the guidance is, obviously, I would love to see a guidance counselor in every school, but that seems to me the most scheduled. They had scheduled meetings, things like that, less maybe emergency, although there are emergencies too with that. So, wouldn't be taking away they wouldn't be like they wouldn't have a guidance counselor, right? How often would that guidance counselor be in the school? Jay?
We have them scheduled, there's a guidance counselor. I'm not gonna remember the schedule totally off the top of my head, but the way it is currently, there's one full-time one in Reedfield, one full-time one in Manchester, and then it's Tara Wicks that does Mount Vernon and Wayne. And I know she moves between the two schools. I don't know her schedule. Maybe her husband is
I
here.
might
He
be able to tell
know.
you that schedule if you want. I'm Steve DeAngelis, I know Tara Wicks. And her schedule is 2 days a week in Wayne and 3 days a week in Mount Vernon.
Perfect.
Great, thank you. Do you have something to add to that or something different? Okay,
I do
go ahead.
have something to add to that,
Yeah, there's
and so I would just say that, so I work in a school and I work really closely with guidance counselors, and they are often like the go-to person when there is a crisis and it happens.
Versus the principal?
Well, both.
That's with
it
my
often
curiosity,
takes,
like.
it often takes two, or the principal is doing something else, and so they can't address that, so the guidance counselor. So I know the model that you're talking about, like when the guidance counselor comes into the classes and does, whatever lessons that he or she does. I think the position has changed a little bit more since we you know, since we were in school. But maybe the principals can speak to what it's really like. Yeah, that'd be great.
That'd be so helpful.
Yeah, we can do that, please. I got you.
Abby Hartford, principal at Manchester.
Are we talking about cutting one of those three people?
We're talking about saving, or, yeah, well, I mean, everything's on the table.
It's here, that's funded
Yeah.
by us, okay,
Yeah.
all right, thank you. Well, I
Okay.
have another question.
And I'll get you guys after. This is-
So, I'm Abby Harper, principal at Manchester. So presently, we have a full-time guidance counselor who is busy every minute of every day. The model right now, she is going into classrooms to doing social emotional lessons, social skills with students every class once a week. In addition, she meets with students that are dealing with anxiety, with family, changes in family structures, friendship issues, some social skills. We also have a social worker, so she does referrals. She kind of does the triage and sends kids to a social worker or a Kennebec Behavioral Health social worker that comes in, so she makes referrals, a lot of parent contact. Our kids are needy, and she's meeting a lot of their needs and putting them right back in the classroom, and we're very appreciative of it. The prior model was that she came in like 2.5 days a week, and they were set schedules so that she would meet with kids, but she also only did guidance in the classroom every other week at the most. Sometimes if you had a snow day, a special holiday, that got tossed out. So she saw children a lot less frequently, and didn't have nearly the impact with them. And then wasn't necessarily always in the building, because for some reason ours was shared between Reedfield and us. And so if she had an emergency or crisis or, an immediate need in a child, she would leave and go to address that situation. But that was what the model was. Do you want to add to that?
Yeah, sure. So I think it's worth noting Wayne is a tier 3 school, and Jay has shared a little bit about that. And the work of tier 3 that we've done this year at Wayne Elementary is really refining our MTSS process. And we've done some significant changes in the way that we operate. And all the positions that we're talking about are really central to the work that we've done this year. And it would certainly change the structure of what we're anticipating doing for next year if we lose a position like the guidance position, because we've really, we've created a very multidisciplinary approach. We have an entire team of people making decisions to support students that are in need. And so we have the statistics on, how many of each of these positions actually service students across our schools. And I'd be happy to, share any of that information. But I think it's important to know that these positions have really been foundational to that work, and that's why we're seeing some of the improvements that we're seeing this year.
Thank
For
you.
me, it's really exciting.
Yeah, thank you both. Appreciate it. Patricia, go ahead.
I support the elementary nurse, elementary guidance, and elementary principal. And as for the nurse, if anybody's been in a school at noon where they lay out the medication, there's such a potential for a receptionist or a ed tech messing it up accidentally, or some kid coming in and taking the wrong, that happened at one of the schools I was at, took the wrong meds. I think having a nurse there is just really important for as much as you can.
Thank you. Wyatt?
I just wanted to add that coming from the school, emergencies never happen at a good time. Having a nurse there full-time is crucial, I believe, because at any given time, something could happen. And then same with mental emergencies. Guidance counselors are huge for that. I have had many classmates just had to leave and go to guidance in the middle of class, and you never know what's happening at home. I just believe that having nurses and guidance counselors is just as important as having a principal for the students.
Thanks, Wyatt. Appreciate that input. David?
Yeah, can someone explain, a daily, what the nurse goes through? I know they can dispense pills, but what's the limit? What's the highest emergency they can take care of a child before you have to call like an ambulance or something? I know they can't suture you if you're bleeding and all this stuff, but what is their limitation?
So all of our nurses have to be, I don't know what the certification is called, but they all have to have that in order to be, so they can basically take care of anything other than a traumatic injury.
Like
Yeah,
suturing?
right, like if a child breaks a bone or whatnot, they're just gonna, stabilize it and get them immediately to a parent or call the ambulance depending on what it is. So they pretty much can do anything that we've got supplies on hand to be able to do.
Do we have any statistics on how many emergencies actually happen?
I don't.
Per week or?
Yeah. I could ask and see if they track anything and see if there's any data that they have. I can ask them.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
David, go ahead.
At my work, we have a nurse visiting regularly, and having the nurse there made a difference, not because of what the nurse could do, but because of their expertise. They were able to evaluate a situation in a way that I and the staff there were not able to, and knew that this person had to go to the hospital stat, whereas we didn't have the skill to do that. Having the nurse there made that difference at a crucial time.
Thanks, David. Well, we have a motion on the floor right now to keep the elementary nurse, the elementary guidance counselor, and the elementary principal. So, seeing no further discussion, we're gonna call for a vote.
All righty. Wendy, you're first.
Yes.
Kristen?
Yes.
David G.
Yes.
Annie?
Yes.
Tyler?
Yes.
Christine?
Yes.
Leslie?
Yes.
Patricia?
Yes.
Rebecca?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Kelty?
Yes.
David T.
Yes.
And Wyatt.
Yes.
So that passes unanimously.
Okay, the next question is, does anyone want to do anything further tonight?
I have a question, Sean.
Leslie was up first, so Leslie, go ahead.
Fast. That was a fast.
Yeah.
So I have a couple of different things here. I don't know if I should sort of touch on some and then we figure out where we start, but other things that we've talked about that would be budget reducing still, is still seeking grants for some of the things that we have had in proposals, that we've had in presentations, or that we want to keep going forward. Right now, we're talking about grant funds we no longer have and how beneficial they were, yet we don't have many grants come before us that help to reduce the budget and make it easier for us to say yes to the things that we don't have to directly pay for, other than the thought that we have talked about the possibility of having a resource that can almost, but in a part-time capacity, do grant research and seek out other ways for us to have funding that's not on top of some of what other folks are doing that other folks can participate in as a benefit for those. That is one, and that would also impact our bottom line.
Well, can I answer that?
Yeah,
It
sure.
wouldn't impact the bottom line this year, because our grant funds would reduce money, so we need to look at that in the future. I just want to make that clear to
Thank you.
anybody listening.
That's good.
Because how it is, if grant money comes in, then the money goes into the, correct me if I'm wrong, somebody, but if grant money comes in, then it goes into the surplus, it doesn't reduce the bottom line for the taxpayer, because we vote on that. So that wouldn't happen immediately. That's something we can look at for the next budget. is
Sounds
my
good.
understanding.
I also appreciate the offered improved solutions that do make a benefit to what our budget is looking like. Technology being one, where they have offered some consolidated solutions here of reducing some of those costs. A middle school restructuring is also one of those that's on the table that seems to potentially be linked directly to some of what is proposed on this list, but yet we don't know what the potential outcome or what that restructuring could look like to know whether it's supporting these decisions for these line items on this list also. And that seems to impact the one middle school teacher that's a long-term substitute, maybe in some way, a middle school teacher with a reduction in population, and the conversation that was still around world language that would be impacted by all of that. So without that information, I'm not sure how much further we could go specifically on those positions. But also, some of the discussion has been around the right people in the right places that have had significant impact. And I still wonder that no matter what some of the solutions are, if we don't have the right people in the right place to support that, that's not a reason for us not to make a decision. We need to have the right people in the right places that support the decisions that we have to make. And I know that doesn't bring us exactly to a line item, but it's important. You know, some of the discussion is still around hearing a parent's testimony about a critical resource that's helped her individual student and child to progress that makes somebody else just go, well, I want my child to have that experience. You know, and so, but that teacher or that interventionist is at Wayne Elementary and not where my child is potentially. Do you understand? Like, it's just, there's great resources everywhere, and I know that's gonna feed into our consolidation conversation. I know that doesn't do anything for this in this exact moment, but there is other work that does seem to offer the chance for some reductions here, but we don't know enough about where that work is that can help support making a clear decision on 3 or 4 of these line items.
All right, thank you. We have the information we have, and that's where we're at. I know that doesn't help, but that's where we're at, unfortunately, and it's nothing new. Christine, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question about the technology integrationist. It's on the second page of the draft budget saving options. One integrationist, so that would be that's the position. The amount is $96,528. And it says, keep this, 2 integrationists split between the 3 levels and teach all tech classes. So I'm not exactly sure what the impact. So if it's on this list, it must be a suggestion or to consider removing that integrationist. Is that right?
Yeah, that's the same one from last week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I am in favor of doing that.
Thank you, Christine, for bringing this up. That's exactly what I was going to bring up. Because based on this, it says we have 3 integrationists in our district right now.
Yes.
And so cutting only 1 would reduce it by 96.
We'd have to cut 1 more integrationist. So we have 1 that's retiring that's already been removed from the budget. So we currently, moving forward, have 2. If you want to cut 1 more, that's where we're going.
And is that reflected on the proposal, the technology
Nope,
director's proposal?
the proposal is, I want to make sure I'm looking at the right plan. So keeping the 2 integrationists, but reducing 1 ed tech.
So the one ed tech would be the 38,000?
Yes, yeah,
Why is it 38 and 39?
2 different people, so,
Gotcha.
yeah,
So depending on which
Yeah.
one left.
yeah.
Pat, go
Sean,
ahead.
can I make a motion?
Let Pat finish and then yes.
I'm confused over the integrationist position. Well, if you only have 1 integrationist, they're gonna teach all these new tech classes? That's a lot, plus all the rest of their work.
Right, the only tech classes are in the elementary school, and the tech plan would be actually to keep the pre-K technology interventionist and have 1 elementary technology ed tech. And between the 2 of them, they would take care of teaching classes. But we'd have 1, we'd keep the other technology interventionist, and that person would be split between the middle school and the high school. And then you'd have an ed tech that would be part librarian and part technology person at both the high school and middle school. You'd have 1 in each So that way, that would allow the interventionist to move between the two schools.
Okay, so it's not really a technology integration, it's that it's possible to eliminate?
You could if you wanted to. This is the.
I don't want
yeah,
to.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just trying to figure it out.
Yeah. So the proposal from the technology department is to have 2 integrationists and then have 3 ed techs.
Okay,
Does that make sense? Like,
Yes.
I'm just gonna simplify it.
thank you,
Yeah.
I like that.
And that proposal would mean cutting one more technology ed tech.
Right.
Tyler? Go ahead, sir.
I'd like to move to adopt the technology proposed plan as written.
Second.
Been moved in second in discussion. David, so I'd like an explanation on how, I mean, I've read this, but I'm not totally following how this equates from here to here. And Diane, can you help with that, please? Thank you so much.
Okay, so,
And which one am I looking at?
okay, so do you want to,
At the proposed.
the proposed?
Okay,
let's look at the
24,
proposed one.
25, yeah,
Right.
okay.
So what this does is it really starts a consolidation and a plan around how we do technology in the district. It preserves some things that just like, we have a plan coming forward with putting Promethean boards in every classroom. How do we support that kind of work when we're doing that sort of thing? We also have invested so much money in online curriculums. We have new staff turnover. Those are the types of things that just take up so much time and benefit all teachers and students. We have, student devices 1-to-1 from K until 12, and we're just managing those devices and getting, if we've got a headphone piece stuck in an iPad, we've got somebody to come and get it and then bring it to be repaired and swap it with another device. There's just a lot of management. I'm committed to looking at this further, trying it for a year and looking at this further and find some efficiencies and that type of thing. But I felt like, there's 2 big cuts in this, and I hope that we can do this. Everybody feels this. It's felt at the high school, the middle school, and all 4 elementary schools. It's just a lot to manage, and I feel like we're trying to do our part to, keep what we know works and find some efficiencies and still try and deliver everything that we have been delivering.
No, I appreciate that. So this plan, if I take this sheet and this plan, what is being cut on this sheet?
So
Or is there any-
if you look at the first sheet, so the high school tech integrator, that's the current,
Yep,
that's gone.
that's gone under this plan.
And
So
then
96,000.
one of the elementary technology ed techs is gone.
Okay, so those 2 positions are gone.
That's right.
I thank you so much. Appreciate all you do. I mean, we have some great technology. Yep. Leslie?
Sean, I have a question for Jay.
Yep.
In the sheet that you provided around some area schools, Jay.
Yes.
There's some very simple information here
Yep.
for a school name and then their student count. But I want to be sure that I understand that when you look at a very comparable student count school to our district, like Winslow, is Winslow including high school, middle school, and
Yes.
how many elementary schools?
Yes. I do not know how many elementary schools they have, but it does include their middle school, high school, and whatever they've got for elementary schools.
Is there a chance they have more than one elementary school?
It is possible, yes. They might have a split, like a
K through 3
Yeah,
and
yeah,
4th.
exactly, yeah. I do believe that's a possibility.
Christine, go ahead.
So I do know, so I'll add this, that Mount Blue School District, RSU 9, has 7 school buildings.
Yeah.
I wonder if the efficiencies or maybe the positions that they have are, maybe they're able to do, skilled at doing more things. So it's not really apples to apples, I don't think. I really appreciate what was said about looking at efficiencies. I do think we have to do the very hard thing of prioritizing because we don't want to go with a very high budget. So I'm still in favor of removing that one integrationist that remains on the draft budget saving options. When I look at Mount Blue at 2,270 students with 1.5 fewer positions, I just think there's got to be a way to do it. And I hate having to say that.
Oh, Pat?
I supervise student teachers, and so I get into a lot of the different schools, and they do, each one does it a little differently as far as the technology. With some of them, the things, especially with the younger grades, they don't work. And they don't have anybody to fix it, so they're doubling up kids on computers or iPads. So I think this is a complex subject.
David, go ahead.
I like to go, the idea of going with the plan that's been presented and the cuts that relate to that, because that'll be hard, but it's what our team has presented us. And then also the comparison to the other schools. I want to keep that 9th position or better, and that doesn't mean we just throw money or positions at things. I think we all know that. But doing more cuts is undercutting our abilities. I think we ought to go with the plan and the cuts related to it, but not go further.
Thanks, David. Go ahead.
Another question for you, Jay. So the back of this paper,
Yes,
were these positions funded?
by Esther?
Yeah, the column's gone on that page. Or is this fluent or is this two separate?
Right, no, it's something different. Those were not funded by Esther.
They were not.
They
So
were not.
we had
Right,
9.5
Yes.
technology positions before
yes,
COVID?
yes.
Okay.
Kelty, go ahead.
I agree, David, that this is a beautiful plan. This is easy to follow, and I do appreciate that when cuts are made interdepartmentalized, I mean, by the professionals that know it. You guys are ground level people, you know the absolute needs, and we really appreciate that because that's the information we need to make these choices. No room for extra stuff, right? So I just wanted to be clear that I do support the plan as well, and the new plan, and I wanted to make sure that the new plan is outlined in the budget. Is it already less in the budget, or would that reduce this number if we chose this plan? Thank you, Mandy.
So it'll partially reduce it. Again, when you look at this sheet, the high school integrationist was retiring, and so we had already taken her out of the budget. So the only thing that would additionally come out of the budget based on this plan would be that technology ed tech.
The 38.
Correct.
But so then why is it listed on this list twice then? It seems like it's listed twice.
Yeah.
It is, but you'll see in the decision, it says reduced within second draft, those first 2 items.
Yes, but then on the back of the so that's the interventionist, which in the current plan over here isn't even listed.
It should say integrationist, and there's another integrationist on the second
Additional.
page.
Right.
which would reduce us from 3 to 1.
Right.
And the new plan
Is
has
asking
2.
to keep
Is
two.
still asking for two.
Correct.
So if we adopt the plan, I'm gonna ask again, how much are we cutting?
38.
The 38,
Okay, not
the
the
ed tech.
96, we're
Right,
cutting
not the 96.
38,000.
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
I'll pay for the drill press.
Okay, heard.
Okay? Wyatt, did you have your hand? Okay, no, go ahead. Yep, we'll call for a vote
For the plan.
For the
for the
plan,
plan, yeah,
which would
Tyler's
reduce.
motion. So the plan will reduce the current
One
budget
ed tech.
by $38,882.40, to be clear. After all that.
Okay, Wendy,
Yes.
Kristen,
No.
David G,
Yes.
Annie,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Christine,
No.
Leslie,
No.
Patricia,
Yes.
Rebecca,
No.
Sean,
No,
Brian,
Yes.
Kelty,
Yes.
David T,
Yes.
and Wyatt.
Yes.
So we've got 1, 2, 3, 7, we've got 8 yeses and 5 noes, so it passes.
all right. Do we have any other decisions that want to be made regarding this? We've reduced the budget by $38,882.
I do.
Okay, Becky, go ahead.
I would like to make a motion to authorize Jay to explore the language, high school, middle school combination and the middle school restructuring.
Second.
The language in the middle school restructuring. Nope. And we have a motion and a second discussion. Tyler, just,
Can I ask a question about that?
yes, absolutely.
So, it looks like there was in the papers, a world language, like there was something proposed, and I thought that was by Jay, or by. Did I not see that somewhere? Okay. Yeah, the proposal, right, okay, right, the model, thank you, yep. So it's the model of no foreign language in 6th grade, exploratory in 7th grade, and then select a year-long language in 8th grade. But, okay, I see, so Rebecca's motion is not necessarily about this, it's
It's to
about,
explore.
pardon?
Your motion is to explore this plan, is that correct? I just want to be clear.
That's correct. To authorize Jay to explore restructuring that language program so that we can still offer the 3 languages to the students.
What does explore mean?
Like, I'm just, Rebecca, if I'm speaking for you and I'm not right, just correct me, but I believe that what that means is bringing it back to the foreign language departments at both the middle school and high school, look how it fits into the restructuring plan, and also then look at the cost savings that go along with that, if any, and get kind of the pros and cons of that and bring that all back. Is that correct, Rebecca?
That is very eloquently what I meant. Thank you very much.
David, go ahead.
I'm grateful that this is being explored, as with all the other things. It's been a really tough job each year for Jay and the whole district to explore. How can we keep costs under control? I am not initially comfortable with removing language from 6th grade. It's small, but I do not think we should be cutting back. I think if we can restructure in ways that are more economical, just as with technology, we need to look at this. But I'm not comfortable with cutting back what the students, that's a year that they're going to lose as far as being able to begin this process. I have a step-granddaughter that at 1.5 is learning 3 languages in another country where they seem to do better than we do in the US.
So where I'm at in this is, so the next meeting, I feel like we are where we always are, because next meeting we have to vote on this budget. We haven't had any, and I'm not blaming anybody, everybody's busy, everybody's working hard, I'm working hard, everyone on this board, everyone sitting here is working hard. But we're gonna be at a decision, we made some votes tonight based on some good stories, great job. Everyone's child is gonna be affected here. Because there was an integrationist specialist cut, somebody is not gonna have the computer in the same amount of time they had. That is a fact, that's a reality. So if we're gonna, next meeting, we have to vote to send the budget to the towns.
We have 1 more week. Sorry.
Okay,
We have to vote on the 10th.
okay, that's not what was told to me, so, anyway, I changed some major plans to be here for next meeting, so. Anyway, so I was told we had to vote next meeting. But the point is we're making decisions based on, we have a school in Wayne. Like, every decision we make here, a kid is gonna be affected. And so I want to give those parents the same opportunity that these parents had, which was fair. I think everyone thinks we're fair, to see how their kids are going to be affected. I mean, I might think it's okay to cut 2 middle school teachers, but there may be a mom or dad out there who don't think it's fair and that their student's going to lose out because they're at the bottom of the barrel when it comes to math. They can't afford to send their kids to a tutor. They don't have the time to do that. So every decision we make here, we're failing a kid, and we're making somebody in the community pay taxes at a higher level next year who's gonna have to make a decision. These aren't easy decisions. Everyone has a story to tell. So if we're gonna just continue on as business as usual, that's fine too. And we can roll the dice and gamble with the towns and see if they pass it and come back for a fire sale cut. That's where I'm at. I'm done voting on making cuts. I say we pass the budget as it is. I make a motion, we do that, and let's move forward. These people spent a lot of time bringing this information, and based on a few stories, a few phone calls, which are all legit, we're here today. And people change their votes. So I make a motion, we move the budget forward as is.
Point of order, we have a motion on the table.
Oh yeah, you're right. Sorry. So go ahead. Yeah, we can go ahead. No, that's my apologies. So that's where I'm at. I don't think there's a lot of time to explore some major cuts that's gonna have a major effect on our middle school, which is gonna have effect on hundreds of kids.
Can I ask a question about your comments?
Yeah.
Because I just don't understand, I'm not sure where, like, what your sense is of, you seem to want things to be going differently.
Yeah.
And I just want to understand that. You've been on the board a long time, you have a lot of experience. What is it that you think, I mean, I understand too, that everybody's really busy and that they have already done so much work, like bringing information to us. Is that the concern, or?
Well, that's the concern. My thought was, I was told we had to vote on the budget next meeting. A 1 week's time, and to give parents and teachers an opportunity when your back's against the wall, like we were. I can give examples of my time on the board, multiple, where we had to do that on the bond. Like, because of the timeline, our backs, we either voted that night or we didn't get a bond. We had that happen on another thing. We had that happen on during COVID. We had to vote that night or things weren't gonna move forward. So I felt, and that's a major change for our school district, and we either have to raise our hand or not next meeting. I just don't think that's enough time, so let's move forward, give it more time.
Thanks for clarifying, thank you.
On the motion that we're actually gonna vote on, which, but I also have questions about your stuff and very important. I sort of, we're giving him approval to go ahead and investigate it, but I feel like he's already investigating it for us. Sort of like what you were saying, that a lot of work has gone into evaluating it and presenting in this proposal that I may have objected to cutting the 6th, but whatever, a lot of work and thought has gone into it already. So, in that sense, I would vote against this proposal and motion and say that the motion should be to go ahead and try that, or that, or to go ahead and try that with an adjustment on the 6th grade, you know, just going my, and then on your thing, if we voted on, you know, when you make that motion, budget as is includes these proposed that you're wanting.
Not cutting, no.
No more.
No more.
cuts.
But I kind of backtrack a little bit because I was told I made some serious travel plan changes for my family and myself so I could be here next meeting. I was told next meeting was it, and that's fine, mistakes happen. So.
It's actually the meeting after?
It's the meeting after. And so, I retract some more and I say, but if we're gonna, let's see where this motion goes, and then I talk too soon. So, let's just see where this motion goes. I'll leave it at that.
I just want to clarify, like, next week is basically the last chance to change the budget. Whatever we walk out with next week, the following meeting, yes, you're going to vote on it, but we have to have all the documentation ready. So, like, Sean is right when he's saying next week is the drop dead date. Because the following, we have to do the formal vote, but we have to have all the paperwork ready with everything laid out. And you guys are gonna sit there and sign warrants for about 15 minutes, each of you. And so we are at that point where next week is, you know, we're there. So, you know, I don't, you know, I know there are new people to the board and stuff, but Sean is right. Next week is the, you know, we have to have time to get everything ready. So the clock is ticking, so.
Tyler, go ahead.
I'm kind of the opinion that I'm okay holding this motion a week so we can get feedback on it. But I think we need to look at bringing the budget down just to get us under that 5%. I think we've done a lot over the last couple of years. And we've modified the structure of the district through grant funding. But I think it's now time to go back and look at our efficiencies. We'll start here. We've got more years to do other areas of adjustment, but I think we've put a lot of work this year into addressing inefficiencies in one part of the district. And I'd like to get feedback on that for next week with the drop dead vote on up or down on it. But I'd still like to see the budget come down to be under 5%. So another 1.5%.
Thanks, Todd. Kelty, go ahead.
Thank you. I have a question. This page, what are we calling it?
I can't see that far.
Everything on the left column, if you go down to the bottom, transportation, the 4 bus aids, that's listed as 184. Amanda, you can speak to this. That's listed as 184, but it's already been removed from the second draft. 4 bus aids from 146. So that's a discrepancy of 40K.
Yeah.
Because the item description says 4 bus aids, but that wasn't all that was in her request. She also had the
Yes.
card
Card
readers.
readers.
Okay, so that,
But the bulk of it was the 4 bus aides, that's why the.
So the remainder, whatever that difference is still in the budget.
Yes.
So okay, I would like to make a motion to eliminate.
We have a motion on the floor.
Okay.
So let's get through, if we're good, are we good with this motion? I mean, good to vote on it, or do
Could
people
you
have more questions?
remind us one more time what it is? This is to get more information.
More
on the
information
language stuff.
on language in the middle school consolidation
Consolidation.
effort.
To talk to the language teachers.
Correct.
With the goal
we're
of voting on it next week.
With the goal of voting on it next week.
Is this to see if they could merge with the high school or do some?
It's the plan that Jay talked about for the language teachers.
Okay.
And then the middle school. I don't know where that paper went.
So if you look at the sheet that's stapled that says class audits and foreign language information and flip it over to the back, that's where the kind of proposal is.
You good, Pat, or you need more
No, I'm
information?
good, thank
Okay.
you.
Does anyone need any more information, questions, comments on this one?
Voting on this plan.
Yeah, voting, well, we're not voting to explore it, not voting on it, let's be clear. Pat?
I have a clarification, Beck, about the motion. So are you trying to see what Jay can come up with as far as utilizing these language teachers in the restructure to kind of like see what their weight is worth in gold, like how they can also be utilized? Is that what you're trying to find out in the restructuring?
Well, if he's restructuring, then, that all of this is going to play in together. So if I'm sure he's got a lot of work already done on it. So I'm just asking that he bring something to us so that we can vote on that. Cause there's 2 middle school teachers and there was world language on our list of things to consider. Yeah, the world language at the middle school and 2 middle school teachers.
Christine?
Yeah, I just have a question. Has the restructuring, is that kind of being finalized?
I meet with Principal Soroyce tomorrow, and I know they have another meeting tomorrow afternoon, and that's kind of when they're finalizing everything. So, yeah. So they're very close to finalizing, so giving me time to go back and talk with him and get that information will be super helpful. I think this will clarify a lot, just because of the timing of everything.
Thanks.
Is one of the middle school teachers that was possibly going to be removed, was this world language teacher?
No.
Okay.
That's
Separate.
Separate, yeah.
Separate, so there's two, there's 2 middle school teachers that are on this list, and one less world language.
Which in Jay's proposal, I believe, tell me if I'm wrong, Jay, meant 3 less teachers.
Right.
Correct.
And that was kind of hot off the presses today, so, that was just me doing an analysis of teaching loads and time and all that stuff.
Without that conversation, that is the motion that's on the table.
Yeah.
Yeah, correct. All right, anyone have any more questions, comments? All right, Kelty's hand's going up. Let's do it.
So with the transportation extras, and I'm calling them extras because, again, needs versus wants, and if we are trying to be fiscally responsible.
Can we get through this motion? Yeah, because
Yes,
this is not to do with.
sorry, I
Sorry,
forgot
sorry,
that.
sorry.
We're still on
No.
that. Okay, vote it. Let's go.
All right, everybody good? Everyone clear what we're voting on? Okay, let's call for a vote.
Wendy,
Yes.
Kristen,
Yes.
David G,
Yes.
Annie,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Christine,
Yes.
Leslie,
Yes.
Patricia,
Yes.
Rebecca,
Yes.
Sean,
No.
Brian,
Yes.
Kelty,
Yeah.
David T,
No.
and Wyatt.
Yes.
All right, so what is that? 2 noes and 9, yep, so it passes.
Okay, now Kelty, the motion you're
Thank you, Sean.
riveting to make.
I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, and I'm sorry, and I know, tedious process. So I just get hung up on like the low-hanging fruit stuff to me before we're talking about the impactful human lives here. So
Okay, where are we going, Kelty?
we're going here again.
All right, so we're on this sheet, everybody.
Yeah.
So everyone's
And I
on
just don't
the same
know.
page.
Okay, so the remainder, let's focus on transportation real quick. The remaining amount is 37,800 and change. And that included card readers for 25 and so, and this was from a previous meeting, I know, and a couple other things.
The, 2 vans.
Two
Because she
vans.
currently has one with lots of miles on it, and we're doing more out-of-district placement, and so
Right.
if that van breaks down, we can't transport
Okay.
those special education students that need out-of-district transport.
So I guess what I had a question about, what came to mind tonight was trying to justify 25,000 for a card reader. And she said we order a lot of cards. for
Okay,
kids,
so
we're breaking
the,
them.
the
Card
two,
readers, not-
the 2 vans, the 2 new 7-passenger vans would be $27,000, or about $30,000. The tech supplies, software, and card printer accounts for about $6,300.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've got a drill press for 8K, we've got a card reader for 6K, those.
That
maybe-
includes radios and tablets for the vans, for the new vans. So it's not always easy. You have to kind of tease that
And I
out.
think you have to have those stuff for the new vans, is that correct or not?
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to, but
So,
Yeah.
but just because it's a budget salad of a bunch of things put into one number, can Kelty still make a motion that says,
yeah.
I make a motion to remove specifically
Yeah,
an
but I guess
item,
when
even though
we-
she doesn't know what the cost is?
Right, but when we factor them out, it's a drop in the bucket, but I do love
good.
the idea of scrutinizing this before we vote, because these itty bitties add up, to 0.5%, you know, and, those we can go down the road.
Am I allowed to talk?
Yes, please.
No,
Actually, it's the
No.
board chair.
That's why I asked.
no.
Really?
I thought the answer was no.
Could you text me what you want?
I will.
Okay, so you guys know where I'm going with that. Those can, we need, I don't know, we need a drill press. Maybe next year for Christmas, we'll get a drill press. I don't know. I have no motion tonight. I'm
Okay,
gonna think about this. Thank you.
anyone have anything else? All right, I'll ask for a
What
motion.
about you?
I'm sorry?
Didn't you have a motion you were going to stop?
I'm gonna wait till the next meeting.
I have a question. I have another question.
Okay, sorry, yep, Guilty, go ahead.
I mean, we have ed tech positions that are not currently filled. How long have they been vacant? How we doing without them? And those are significant numbers. Are we trying to currently fill them, or are these placeholders in our budget?
So the only position that is not currently filled is the math ed tech position. We've been advertising that since basically November, and we have not filled it. So it's been basically all year long, we have not had that position. Are we surviving without it? Yes. Could we do better with it? Yes.
Right.
So, but it's not filled at this time. And then the elementary library at Tech is a retirement. And again, we can absorb that. Right now, it's a librarian and then 1.6 ed tech. So that 0.6 ed tech is only a part-time. Again, it's nice to have. If we're looking at efficiencies, we can do without it.
Christine?
I'd like to make a motion to remove the 0.6 library ed tech. Second.
All right, have been moved and seconded, discussion? David, go ahead.
Does that affect the plan that we just approved? The technology plan?
No, no, those are not technology ed techs.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, seeing no more discussion, call for a vote.
All righty, Wendy,
Yes?
Kristen,
Yes.
David G,
Yes.
Annie,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Christine,
Yes.
Leslie,
Yes.
Patricia,
Yes.
Rebecca,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Kelty,
Yes.
David T,
Yes.
and Wyatt.
Yes.
So that one is unanimous. Approved.
Any other motion? Oh, Rebecca, I see your hand up.
Yes, I would make a motion to remove the math and literacy Wayne Elementary back to half and half, since we approved the principal, and it says on this sheet that if there is no principal, that he would encourage that it stay, but since we have the principal, I would move that we remove that one.
Second.
Haven't been moved and seconded, discussion?
Yeah, I have a question. Yep, go ahead.
Wendy.
Jay, how will this affect things? The removal of this person?
We will obviously have to come up with a plan to look at how to, if we're going back to a halftime literacy, halftime math, we will have to kind of look at the entire district and see where the needs are to be able to move that around. It could end up being one person that does math halftime and literacy halftime. It could be, there's a bunch of different combinations. We'll have to sit down and talk about that as a team as the best way to move that forward.
Thank you.
Wendy, Kelty?
I strongly oppose this. This is an incredibly necessary two-people position. I'm in Wayne, this affects Wayne, and this is a heavily utilized and very much appreciated work of very highly qualified individuals, and I want to see them remain. They're crucial to helping a lot of kiddos.
Okay. Annie?
See, I agree with Kelty. I think if we are to do the most for the most, I think it's necessary to keep this position as well.
Okay. Any further discussion on this motion before we go over to a vote? All right, I call for a vote.
All righty, Wendy,
No?
Kristen,
No.
David G,
Can I was lost for a second here. We're talking about getting rid of the math and literacy.
Correct, David.
Yeah, no.
Annie,
No.
Tyler,
No.
Christine,
No.
Leslie,
No.
Patricia,
No.
Rebecca,
Yes.
Sean,
No.
Brian,
No.
Kelty,
No.
David T,
No.
and Wyatt.
No.
So one yes and the rest no, so the motion does not pass.
Do we have any other motions?
I have one.
Okay,
You can go
yeah, go ahead.
Since the position has not been filled since November, I think it's logical to cut the math ed tech previously funded by the tier 3.
Second. That was my motion.
All right, haven't been moved in second. Do we have any discussion on this one? Okay. Leslie, go ahead.
Which school?
Originally, it was funded at Mount Vernon Elementary School through their tier 3 funds.
Any further discussion, questions, comments, or input? All right, seeing none, we're gonna call for a vote.
All righty, Wendy,
Yes?
Kristen,
Yes.
David G,
Yes.
Annie,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Christine,
Yes.
Leslie,
Yes.
Patricia,
Yes.
Rebecca,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Kelty,
Yes.
David T,
Yes.
Wyatt.
Yes.
So it was unanimous, passes unanimously.
Do we have any other motions?
Not a motion.
Any other comments, information people need for next time?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
So the restructuring of the middle school, is that in relationship to these two positions?
It could be, yes, there is the potential, yes.
Okay. I feel like I need a little bit more information on those. I know one of them is a current long-term substitute, but, you know, and
Yeah.
you say right here, looking at enrollments, I suggested the cut, so I guess I could be open to that.
Yeah. When I look at the world language, I will bring that back with it, so.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Anyone else? Christine?
Nope, never mind.
Are you sure?
Yep, I'll hold
Okay.
it for next time.
Well, I just want to make very clear, I know it's 9 o'clock at night, but nobody may be listening, but parents in the middle school, you're up next. Like, there's major decisions for your kids, teachers. I would spread the word if you care. The vote's gonna happen next time one way or the other because it has to. So spread the word so we can get the maximum input from those folks, please. Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All right.
Second.